You open the refrigerator at 3 in the afternoon, looking for something to nibble on, and somewhere in the back of your mind sits a number that worries you. Your creatinine, that single figure your doctor circled on the last blood test and tapped with his pen. I know that feeling because I lived it too. And I found something that changed how I snack forever. Here is what I discovered, and it stunned me. 5 ordinary snacks, the kind your grandmother kept in a tin on the counter, may quietly ease the burden on your kidneys and help nudge that number in the right direction. Not pills, not powders. Not a single thing you have to order or subscribe to. Foods that earlier generations reached for without a second thought. I am going to walk you through every one, and I am going to end with the one that shocked me most. A method I traced back to a home economics bulletin from the 1930s and confirmed against a study published in the journal Kidney International in 2012. It works in your own kitchen, with what you already have. Stay with me, because the trail only gets stranger from here. It started on a gray Tuesday when I was clearing out my late Aunt Ruth's kitchen. Tucked behind a stack of chipped saucers, I found a handwritten index card. The ink faded to brown, and across the top she had written 4 words that stopped me cold. For the kidneys, daily. Below it was a list of foods so plain I nearly laughed. But my aunt lived to 91 with kidneys that never gave her a day of trouble, and I could not shake the feeling she knew something the rest of us had forgotten. So I started digging, and the deeper I went, the angrier I got at how much of this we have simply lost. Let me start with the first snack on Ruth's card, because it is the one nobody expects. Red bell peppers. Now, most people over 65 have been told 100 times to fear vegetables when their kidneys are struggling because so many are packed with potassium, and too much potassium is hard on tired kidneys. That fear is real, and it sends people running from the produce aisle altogether. But here is the paradox I stumbled onto. The red bell pepper is one of the lowest potassium vegetables you can buy, and it happens to be loaded with the very compounds that protect the tiny filtering units inside your kidneys. A single medium red pepper carries only about 200 milligrams of potassium, a fraction of what you find in a banana or a potato. Yet it delivers more vitamin C than an orange, along with vitamin B6, folic acid, and a red pigment called lycopene. I went looking for why that pigment mattered, and I found research out of the nutritional sciences programs that have studied lycopene for years. That red color is an antioxidant that fights the oxidative stress and inflammation that slowly scar kidney tissue over time. So here is exactly what I do now. I slice a red pepper into strips, the way you would cut them for a party tray, and I keep them in a glass container at eye level in the fridge. In the afternoon, when the urge to snack hits, I reach for those instead of crackers. Sometimes I roast a batch in the oven until they go soft and sweet, because roasting concentrates that flavor and makes them feel like a treat rather than a chore. No salt, no dip loaded with sodium, just the pepper. That partly answered my aunt's card. But it also raised a bigger question that kept me up that night. If a snack this simple and this cheap can lift some of the load off your kidneys, why had not one of the 3 specialists I had seen ever mentioned it? Why did every conversation end with a prescription and never with a shopping list? That question sent me to the second item on Ruth's list, and this one has real history behind it. Cranberries and blueberries. The little dark berries she circled twice. Here is the clue that pulled me in. For centuries, long before anyone could measure creatinine at all, sailors and country doctors reached for these berries whenever the waterworks went wrong. I always assumed that was an old wives' tale. I was wrong. When I traced it back, I found that consumer science and agricultural extension programs have spent decades studying exactly why these berries help, and the answer is a family of compounds called proanthocyanidins. Those compounds do something clever. They make it harder for bacteria to cling to the walls of the urinary tract, which is why cranberry has a genuine, measured record against the kind of recurring infections that plague so many people after 65. And here is why that matters for the number on your blood test. Repeated urinary infections put repeated strain on the kidneys, and every bout leaves a little more scarring behind. Protect against the infections, and you protect the filter. Blueberries carry their own gift. That deep blue-purple skin is packed with anthocyanins, another powerful antioxidant, and blueberries sit low on the potassium scale, which makes them a friendly choice when so many fruits are off the table. Half a cup is plenty. So here is what I changed. In the morning, I put a small handful of blueberries on top of whatever I am eating, fresh in summer, frozen the rest of the year, because frozen berries are picked ripe and hold their goodness just fine and cost a fraction of the price. And I keep a bottle of pure, unsweetened cranberry juice in the door, the tart kind that makes you wince, not the sugary cocktail with 14 spoons of sugar hidden inside. A small splash in a glass of water in the afternoon. That is it. By now I felt the satisfaction of two answers, but something was gnawing at me. These were not secrets. These were foods human beings have eaten for thousands of years. So how did they vanish from the advice we get today? Who benefited from us forgetting them? The more competitor videos and forums I read, the clearer the pattern became. Somewhere in the last 40 or 50 years, the plain snack disappeared from the shelves and was replaced by something engineered. The chip, the cracker, the cereal bar wrapped in shiny foil, and every single one of those replacements was built around three things that are hard on kidneys: sodium, phosphate additives, and a stunning amount of sugar. The pepper and the berry did not fail us. They were simply pushed to the back of the store, behind the products that carry a brand, a barcode, and a markup. Here is the part that truly got me. Those phosphate additives, the ones hiding in processed snacks under names most people cannot pronounce, are absorbed by your body far more completely than the natural phosphorus in whole foods. Food scientists have measured this. The phosphorus in a bean or a whole grain is only partly absorbed because it is bound up in the plant. But the phosphate sprayed into a processed snack to keep it fresh and moist gets absorbed almost entirely, and excess phosphate is one of the heaviest burdens you can place on a struggling kidney. We were sold convenience, and we paid for it with the very organ we were trying to protect. That is when I understood what my Aunt Ruth's little card really was. It was not a recipe. It was resistance. A quiet act of holding on to what worked from a woman who came up in a time before the pantry was colonized by chemistry. Which brings me to the third snack, and this is where the trail got practical in a way I did not expect. Apples. The setup is almost too simple. An apple a day. We have all heard it and most of us roll our eyes. But I wanted to know if there was a real mechanism behind the saying or just a rhyme. What I found was pectin, the soluble fiber that lives just under an apple's skin and gives homemade jam its thickness. Here is why pectin matters for your kidneys, and it is the thread that ties this whole investigation together. Soluble fiber feeds the good bacteria in your gut, and those bacteria, when they are well fed, pull nitrogen waste out of your bloodstream and into the digestive tract, where it leaves the body the ordinary way instead of forcing the kidneys to filter every last bit of it. In plain words, fiber gives your kidneys a helper, a second exit for the waste that would otherwise pile up and show on your blood test. Apples are also gentle on potassium and phosphorus, which keeps them on the friendly list, and their natural sweetness satisfies the craving that would otherwise send you toward a cookie. I eat mine with the skin on, well washed, because the skin is where most of the pectin and the antioxidant quercetin live. Sometimes I slice one and dust it with cinnamon, which brings me to a small bonus I found along the way. Cinnamon has its own modest record for helping steady blood sugar, and steadier blood sugar means less long-term strain on the kidneys. since high blood sugar is one of the two biggest reasons kidneys fail in the first place. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right about now. You are thinking this is fine for people with money, with a big kitchen, with someone to shop and slice and roast for them. You are thinking this is not really for you, alone in a small place, on a fixed income, with a bad hip that makes standing at the counter a trial. I thought you might feel that way, so I built this next part specifically for you. And it costs almost nothing. Here is the technique. Take dried, plain white beans or lentils, whichever your budget allows, because a single bag costs $1 or $2 and lasts for weeks. Soak a cup of them overnight in a bowl of water on your counter. In the morning, drain them, rinse them, and simmer them in fresh water until they are soft. No special equipment, one pot. And when they are done, you have the single most powerful fiber snack in this entire investigation, ready to keep in the fridge for days. That question is where the story turned. And I want to be honest with you about what I found, because it made me put my coffee down. If you have found yourself asking the same kinds of questions, wondering what else has been quietly forgotten and what the people who came before us actually knew about keeping the body strong after 60, I put everything I uncovered into a book called Start Strong. It is also part of a broader series, Senior Mastery and Senior System, where I go deeper into the daily habits and recovered knowledge that the older generations carried without ever making a fuss about it. You will find the details in the description below. If this investigation resonates with you, I think those pages will feel like coming home. Now, with that in mind, let me bring you back to the trail, because the third snack is where things got practical in a way I did not expect. A half cup of cooked beans gives you more soluble fiber than almost anything else in a normal kitchen, and that fiber does exactly what the apple's pectin does, only more so. It feeds the gut bacteria that carry nitrogen waste out of your blood. I eat a small scoop cold with a little pepper and a squeeze of lemon, no salt at all. If beans have troubled your stomach in the past, start with just 2 spoonfuls and let your body adjust over a week. That soaking and rinsing step is the trick that removes much of what causes the discomfort, and it is the step almost everyone skips. I want you to hear me clearly on this. You do not need a specialist. You do not need to buy a single branded product. You need a bag of dried beans, a pot, and a little water. That is the whole cost of entry. The people who came before us knew this. A pot of beans on the stove was the quiet backbone of poor and thrifty households for generations, and it was doing kidney protecting work the whole time, though nobody had the language for it yet. But beans led me to a bigger mystery, and this is the one that kept me in the library longer than any other. Because when I asked why fiber helps the kidneys so much, I kept finding the same answer, and it pointed straight at the discovery I want to leave you with. The fourth snack sits right on the edge of that discovery, so let me give it to you first, and then I will open the door all the way. The fourth snack is popcorn. Real popcorn. The kind you make from a bag of plain kernels, not the microwave pouch slick with butter flavoring and salt. I almost did not believe this one until I checked the numbers myself. Air-popped popcorn is a whole grain. 3 cups of it, a generous bowl that takes a long time to eat, carries only about 100 milligrams of sodium if you add none yourself, almost no fat, and a real dose of fiber, all for around 90 calories. Compared to a handful of potato chips, which can carry 200 milligrams of sodium in a portion that disappears in 30 seconds, it is not even a contest. Popcorn is also lower in the phosphorus and potassium that force people to abandon so many other snacks. Here's how I make mine, and it costs pennies. A few tablespoons of plain kernels in a heavy pot with a lid, a little oil, medium heat, and a shake of the pot until the popping slows. That is it. For flavor, I skip the salt entirely and reach for a pinch of the same cinnamon or a little garlic powder or a sprinkle of nutritional yeast. which gives a cheesy taste with none of the phosphate additives that come baked into processed cheese snacks. A whole grain, a satisfying crunch, an hour of nibbling, and almost nothing your kidneys have to work to clean up. So there were four: the red pepper, the berries, the apple, and the beans. The popcorn, each one a small rebellion against the engineered snack that replaced it, and I could have stopped there and been content. But that handwritten card had one more line on it, one I had skipped over because it made no sense to me at first. Ruth had written in her careful hand, "Cook it, then let it go cold." I stared at that line for days. Cook what, and why on earth would letting it go cold matter? That single strange instruction is what led me to the discovery I promised you at the very start. And it turns out my aunt was not being poetic. She was describing a real, measurable phenomenon that science has only fully understood in the last couple of decades, even though home cooks stumbled onto it a century ago. Here is what I found. When you cook a starchy food, a potato, rice, or a grain like barley, and then let it cool completely in the refrigerator before you eat it, something remarkable happens to the starch itself. It rearranges. Part of it transforms into what scientists call resistant starch, a form that your body cannot digest in the usual way. Instead of breaking down into sugar in your stomach, it travels all the way to your large intestine intact, where it becomes food for those same beneficial bacteria I keep coming back to. And this is the heart of everything. Those well-fed bacteria produce compounds that pull urea and other nitrogen wastes out of your bloodstream and lock them away for disposal through the gut, taking that job off the shoulders of your kidneys. Less waste in the blood means a lighter load on the filter, and over time, a gentler number on the test. I needed proof this was not just a nice theory, so I chased down the research. And here is where the trail ended, in black and white. That study I mentioned at the beginning, published in the journal Kidney International in the year 2012, followed people with kidney trouble and found that those who ate the most dietary fiber had significantly lower inflammation and a real reduction in the risk of dying from their condition, compared with those who ate the least. Later, research on resistant starch specifically, carried out in dialysis units, measured what happened when patients simply added resistant starch to their day, and they recorded meaningful drops in the blood markers of waste, including the very toxins that overwhelmed kidneys struggle to clear. Now stay with me, because here is where my Aunt Ruth walks back into the room. That instruction on her card, "Cook it, then let it go cold," is the kitchen recipe for making resistant starch, decades before anyone had a laboratory word for it. And when I went looking for where a woman of her generation would have learned such a thing, I found it. Home economics bulletins from the 1930s, published by the agricultural and consumer science programs of that era, taught families to cook a big pot of grain or potatoes and keep it cold in the larder to stretch through the week. They did it to save money and to save fuel. But by cooking and cooling, they were unknowingly turning ordinary starch into a kidney-friendly, gut-feeding food, and that knowledge was passed hand to hand, card to card, until convenience food came along and cut the chain. So here is exactly how you claim it back this week, and it could not be simpler. Cook a batch of pearl barley, or ordinary potatoes, or brown rice, whichever you like and can afford. Let it cool on the counter, then put it in the refrigerator overnight. The next day, eat a small portion cold or gently reheated, because reheating gently does not destroy most of the resistant starch that formed. A cold barley salad with a few of those red pepper strips and a squeeze of lemon. A cold potato, sliced with a dusting of pepper. That cooling step, the one everybody throws away by eating everything hot and fresh, is the free secret that took me weeks to uncover and my aunt kept alive on a scrap of card for half a century. Barley itself, I should tell you, has the deepest history of all. Barley water was written about by physicians in the ancient world as a remedy for troubled kidneys and bladders, and it survived in household manuals right through the 19th century as a gentle, cooling drink for anyone with waterworks complaints. You make it by simmering a quarter cup of pearl barley in water for a while, straining off the liquid, and drinking it cool with a little lemon. It is soothing, it is nearly free, and it carries that same soluble fiber into your system. The oldest remedy on my aunt's list turned out to be the one with a paper trail going back thousands of years. That is the answer I went looking for, and it turned out to be hiding in plain sight, in a cold pot of grain that our grandparents kept in the larder to save a few pennies. The knowledge existed. It was buried under bright packaging and clever marketing. It was kept alive by careful women who wrote it on cards and never explained why, because to them it was simply how you did things. I dug it back out, and now it belongs to you. Here is what this whole investigation really gave me, and I hope it gives it to you too. It gave me back the feeling that I am not helpless in front of that number on the blood test, that the power to help my own body was never locked away in a pharmacy. It was in the crisper drawer and the bean bag and a cold pot of barley the entire time. I think you are the kind of person who trusts what can be measured over what is merely sold to you, or you would not have stayed with me this long. That is exactly the kind of mind that finds these forgotten things and puts them back to work. So let me ask you something specific, and I truly want to know, of the five, which one surprised you the most? The red pepper being so low in potassium, or the cooking and cooling trick that turns a plain potato into a kidney helper? Tell me in the comments below, and while you are there, tell me where you are watching from, because I love seeing how far these old recovered secrets travel. If your own mother or grandmother had a card or a habit like Ruth's, write it down for the rest of us, because that is exactly how we save this knowledge from disappearing for good. If you want to keep uncovering the things earlier generations knew and we were quietly taught to forget, come along with the rest of us who are doing this together. The next trail I am following is a strange one. It starts with a single spice that sat in nearly every kitchen 100 years ago, one that old almanacs claimed could steady blood pressure without a single pill, and what I have found so far does not match anything my doctor ever told me. I will see you there. I'm Ruth, and if you're still here with me, let me share one more thing. This video gave you the overview, but inside the Wise Living Circle, you get the full kidney-friendly snack protocol, picking up right where we left off. In there, you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing this alone. You belong here. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime, one click, no risk.